Hello, and welcome to another episode of Games Reflect Dad, a show where I'm going to take a look at games that I've added to my collection, either through outright purchases or trades. I'm going to show you how the game is played. I'm going to talk about who or what was the inspiration for adding that to the collection, and then I'm going to give you my overall thoughts. Now, today's show is Bruges from Z-Man Games. This game features action selection, hand management, and it has dice. So let's get it to the table and check it out. Before I get into setup, I want to talk a little bit about the different sections of the board. Now you can see it is very colorful. We have a nice scene in the middle, and you'll notice that we have this basically this ring around the town with these various colors and markings here. So those represent the canals, and we will be building those in the game. We have our city hall with our meeple colors. You can see I've got this set up as a two-player game. So our meeples at some point are going to be moving from the town hall to the reputation track, and they're going to be advancing along that during the game. We have our area for dice, and the value of the dice and the color of the dice is very important. That's going to come into how we're going to be getting gold or threats and things like that. We have our score track around the outside of the board, and over here we have our markers in case we go around to the board more than once. So now let's get to setup. Here's a close-up of the first player marker. Looks pretty cool, and I've not had it really fall over, but I like it. Very thematic. One of the things I really like about this game is it comes with several game aid cards. This one here talks about setup. So you can see at the beginning of the game, each player is going to take a worker of each of the colors. Now there's 5 different colors: blue, purple, yellow, red, and brown. And those are going to be used to activate buildings. Each player is going to get 5 guilders. That's basically the currency. The other thing is each player is going to have 2 seals. Now, these are going to be used basically to represent the player colors. So you can see that I have green and I have blue over there for Megan. But the big one is going to be placed in front of you. The smaller one is going to be placed on this circle part of the board. Now, there are 4 different spots, so whichever one is closest to you. And you're going to place that there. That represents your guardhouse. And you are going to be constructing the canals either to the right or left of where that guardhouse is at. Each player is going to have 2 player pawns, and I mentioned earlier that one of those is going to start up here in the town hall. The other one is going to start on the 5th space of the scoring track, and that is because you can actually lose points in the game. And then finally, we have the majority markers. Now, these are used as in-game scoring, and you're going to start with them on the gray side. This means you have not yet earned these points. But if you ever have the clear majority in people, and that is the people that you have in your play area in front of you, you're going to flip that over to your colored side, and that's going to be worth 4 points at the end of the game. If you have the most canal pieces, then you're going to get 4 points when you flip that over. And if you are the furthest on the reputation track, you'll flip that over. Now, during the course of the game, another player may have majority more than you. You never flip these back over. Once you've achieved that, then you're going to be able to get those points at the end of the game. And there is no ties for this. So if you are checking for the majority and players are tied, then neither player gets to flip. You have to have the clear majority in order to flip these tiles and get these points. The game comes with 165 cards. So what you're going to do as part of setup is you're going to divide these evenly out into 5 different stacks. And then based on player count, you are going to take those stacks, and since I have this set up for a 2-player game, I'm going to take 2 of these stacks, I'm going to shuffle these together, and then I am going to evenly divide them and place these in the card holders up here. Now, the remaining cards that we have, we're just going to put those in a stack, and we're going to set those off to the side because those are only going to come into play possibly at the end of the game. And when I mean possibly, there is a good chance that you may or may not be using those, and I'll talk more about that when I talk about the end game stuff. The last part of setup really is to just place some of the tokens around the board. within easy access for all players. We have our threat markers, we have our canal tokens, we have our guilders, we have our workers, and we have the cards. Each round has 4 phases, and the game again has this nice player aid card. So the first thing you're going to do is each player is going to refill their hand up to 5 cards. You're going to be drawing those cards, and like I said, you're not going to be looking at those. So you can always choose to keep drawing from the same pile based on whatever colors you may be wanting. You can go over to the other pile. And after I have drawn all 5, or drawn up to my 5 cards, then I will put those in my hand, and now I can look at these. So just kind of a real quick overview of what the cards show. This is the cost in order to play that card into a building. This is the number of victory points that you're going to get at the end of the game if this card is in your tableau. This is the color of worker that you need in order to activate this card. And you can see here is the ability that it activates. It says each other player must take 1 threat. And then this down here is there are different types of cards, and there are certain in-game conditions where you might be trying to collect certain ones of these. Over here on the side, again, it shows you basically the color of the card. This is a brown card, so everything here is in brown. It shows what your options are that on your turn. You can take 2 workers, you can take guilders, you can return 1 of your threat of that color back to the supply. You can build a canal piece, and you can build that building. And as you look at the other cards here, you'll notice they'll have different titles, but the color is very important as far as what you're able to do on your turn when you're playing these cards. We are going to then roll these dice. We'll take all 5 of these dice and we will roll them, and then in ascending order we will place them on the track here, and if there's a tie it doesn't matter. The first thing we're going to do is distribute the threat markers. Now there are 5 different kinds, and what we're going to do is we're going to look and see the number of 5s and 6s that we have rolled. In our example here, we have 1 blue 5, so each player is going to get 1 blue threat marker. Here's a close-up of the different threat markers. Now, blue represents flood, brown represents plagues, yellow represents raids, red represents fire, and purple is intrigue. So on the back side, it shows you what the consequences are if you ever get 3 of the same color of threat token. So the blue, the flood, says you have to return all of your workers to the supply. The brown plague means you have to get rid of 1 of your people out of your buildings. The yellow raid says you return all your guilders to the bank. The red fire says you either discard 1 of your built houses or discard 1 of your canal tokens. And then the purple intrigue is just a straight, you lose 3 points. Now I want to point out, if you are getting rid of 1 of your buildings and you have a character in one of those buildings, that character actually goes back into your hand. And if you scored any of the statues for completing the section of a canal, if you have to remove that, you do not return the statue. You get to keep those points. You can also see on the back of this player aid card, here is everything that you need to know about each of the different threats. So the raid, flood, fire, pest, and intrigue. The next part of evaluating the dice is we're going to look at any 1s and 2s that have been rolled. We're going to add those values up. And that's how many guilders we have to pay in order to advance on the reputation track. Now, in our example here, we only have 1 red 2. So the cost to move up onto that reputation track is going to cost us 2 guilders. Now, you can only move 1 space at a time. So even if I had the guilders in order to advance more spaces, I can only advance 1. The third phase is to play cards. Now, each player is going to play one card and they can activate one or more people that they have in their buildings. You're going to take turns going clockwise around until each person has played 4 cards. There is an exception to that rule where you may be allowed to play an extra card, but that would be from one of the special abilities that your people in your building is going to give you. Then finally, the last phase is we are going to verify the 3 majorities. So we're going to be looking to see who has the most people, who has the most canal pieces, and who is furthest on the reputation track. So again, in detail, here are the actions that we can take. If we play a card, we can take 2 workers of the color of card that we played. So if we played a red card, we'd be able to take 2 red workers. Here we can take 1 to 6 guilders. Again, this is based on the color of card we played. Let's just say that I played a blue card, then I would look at the die values down here and see that the blue is a 5, so I would be able to take 5 guilders. I could discard one of the threat markers. So let's say I played a purple card, then I could discard one of the purple threat markers. When I build my canal, that's a little bit different. You'll notice that the canal spaces all have different colors on them. So we have, in this case, yellow, red, blue, brown, and purple. So I'm going to be playing that color card. I'm going to be paying that cost in guilders in order to build this. So let's just say that I wanted to build this first section, because you have to build in order. I would play a yellow card, I would pay 1 guilder, and then I would be able to place a canal marker on that. Now, on my next turn, if I wanted to keep building the canal, I would be playing a red card, I would be paying 2 guilders, and then I would place a marker there. Now, when you get to the 3rd spot, you're going to score 3 points at the end of the game. Also, you do not have to build all of one side before you start building another side. So in this case, I could play a blue card, pay 1 guilder, and build a canal that way. So I could have canals going in both directions from my guardhouse. Here is a little close-up of the stack of statue tokens we have. Now, these are going to be awarded at the end of the game. So the first player that completes one section of their canal will get this token, so that'll be worth 7 points. The next player 6, and that goes all the way down to 2. Building a house is a little bit different. We had been talking about playing the card colors in order to either get workers of that color, or to get that many guilders, or return that many threat. But to build a house, you actually will pay a worker of that color. So if I wish to build a red house, I would have to return 1 red worker back to the supply. Same goes for blue. If I wanted to build a blue house, I would have to return 1 blue worker back to the supply. And then the final action is I can recruit a person. Now, I had showed you before that on the card up here is the cost in order to recruit that person and place them in a building. Now, the building does not have to match the color that the player is. They can go into any open building. Here's an example of the recruiting a person action. So let's say that I wanted to put this person in one of my buildings. It's going to cost 3 guilder, so I would pay 3 guilder to the bank, and then I can choose which one of these houses I want to put that person in. And it doesn't really matter, so I'm going to just place them there. Now, in order to activate this person, I would have to use a purple worker, because that's the color of the worker that's right there. Essentially, I can just place that there to show that I have used that person, and then I get to use his ability. So in this case, it says for each bureaucrat, and you'll notice it's got that little scroll symbol there, which shows that that's a bureaucrat. For each bureaucrat person in your play area, which would be all of this, you get to take 2 guilders. So as I have more bureaucrats there, then every time I activate that, then I'm going to be using that as a source to get some income. And then at the end of my turn, this worker is just going to go back into the supply. The end of game is going to be triggered when one of these 2 piles runs out. So let's say that during the draw cards phase, that pile was emptied. That set aside deck that we had at the beginning of the game is then going to be placed in there so that we have 2 card piles to draw from. Now, let's say that this were to be emptied before the end of game happens. What you're going to do is you're going to take roughly half of this deck and you're going to be placing that over here so that each player always has 2 decks of cards in order to draw from. At the end of that round, that's the end of the game. You're going to figure up who wins based on final scoring. Again, for final scoring, we have this nice player aid. So you're going to score points this way. Each person in your buildings has got that printed value, so you're going to get points for that. That is that little number right there. You're automatically going to get 1 point for every house that you've built. If any of your people have this laurel wreath, that indicates end of game bonuses, and you're going to score based on that text. You're going to get 4 points per majority of those markers that you flipped over. So I had mentioned, before we had the one for the most people, most canals built, and furthest on the reputation track. And you only get those points if you were able to flip that. You're going to get canal points. You're going to get 3 points if you made it to that middle space and you had that covered up there on your canal. You'll get it for both sides. Any of the statue tokens that you receive for completing a section of your canal, you'll get those points. You'll get points based on where you are on the reputation track. So if you look a little closer here, it ranges from 1 all the way up to 12. After you add up all the points, if there's a tie, whoever had the most guilders then would win the tiebreaker. Otherwise, whoever has the most victory points wins. So my inspiration for picking up Bruges and adding that to my collection actually was Richard Ham, Rahdo, from Rahdo Runs Through. And that was because early in our channel's history, I was actually watching a lot of other reviewers to kind of get ideas for games that I might be interested in, especially ones that I might want to cover on the channel. And I remember watching his episode on Bruges, and I thought, man, that is a really cool game. Really what drew me to that was the die mechanic here. Having the die values, represent how much it costs to move along the reputation track, which threats, were you possibly going to have to deal with, how much gold could you get that round, and with the cards as well. So I realize that's kind of moving into my review. So let's just get to what I think. So as I just said, one of the reasons that really drew me to this game is the way the dice work and the different colored buildings. That was kind of unique to me at that time, and I thought, man, this is really cool. And to this day, I still love that about this game. I love the variability of you not knowing how much guilders it's going to cost to move on that reputation track, which threats that you may have to deal with that round, and how you're going to be able to get money. And that's all based on the cards that you have in your hand and picking those colors when you do the draw phase. I just really love that aspect of the gameplay. I think the gameplay is really fairly simple. You're really doing, hand management with the types of cards and the colors that you want in your hand in order to, get the workers that you need in order to build the buildings or activate certain people that are in your buildings. Trying to make sure that you have a variety so that if you have to get money, you have, a card that you can play in order to get the most out of that. And then all of the different abilities of the different characters. I mean, like I said, there's 165 of these cards. So there's all different kinds. And speaking of the cards, let's talk a little bit about the artwork. I think the artwork in this game is fantastic. I love the look of the board, that look of the city. I love the use of the browns and oranges. For some reason, that just kind of appeals to me. But looking at the player cards here, everything is nice and clear. And you can see the artwork on the people just really looks really nice. And the cards themselves are very easy to read. The types of the people that they are is also very easy. I think they did a really good job. And with 165 cards, you have so much variety in what you can do. So each game really is going to be very unique because it's going to be based on the cards you get and the strategies you may be playing around that. You may be playing to get a bunch of different merchants or different bureaucrats, like I was shown in the example earlier, or just different things. And some cards you may not want to, but you have to discard them because that's the only color you have, and you have to get money to do whatever you need to do that turn, or you need to discard it in order to get those colored workers. So there are some agonizing decisions that you have to make in the game. And again, that is just one of the reasons why I love this game so much. But yeah, like I said, there's great artwork on the cards. The cards themselves, they have a nice linen finish. I like the look of the backs of the cards, like I said, with the different colors, and you can see the buildings there. The rest of the components, their cardboard tokens, they're fine. They're a little on the thin side, but they're okay. They're serviceable. The money, the guilders here, you can see here's a close-up that you have 1s and 3s. Show that off a little bit better there. They're okay. If I could, I would probably upgrade these to metal coins, or I might even try to make my own version out of clay, kind of give them a little bit more heft, a little bit, more feel to them. But, that's really just kind of a personal preference. The dice are just wooden rounded corner dice, and same with the meeples. They are just nice wooden meeples here. And the game did have green and blue, so dad versus daughter colors. The other colors that we have are red and yellow, which that's fine. The worker meeples are a tad on the small side. I think I might have liked to have had these a little bit bigger, but you can see based on the size of my fingers, these are pretty small. I had mentioned several times about the player aid cards. So those are very nice and handy. They're very easy to read. I really enjoyed having those as part of the game. The rule book itself, I think they did an excellent job. Z-Man usually has pretty good rule books, but they have nice layouts here, so you can see here's everything that you need with the setup. The text is large and very clear. They've got the different types of things broken down, so here you can see your phase 1 of drawing cards, what to do when the pile runs out, the distribution of threat markers, advancing on the reputation track. All of this is very clear and concise. Looks good. Plenty of examples. Here's the anatomy of a card. And then here's what you do with the threats and such. And then the game also comes with this card detail sheet. So this talks about people that have the immediate actions, because some of the players, you can activate them. Some are basically a one-time deal, and some are for end-of-game scoring. But you can see, here's more information on the beggar, the jailer, the moneylender, thief, troublemaker, that sort of thing. And then it talks about people with a worker. Here's your acrobat, your charcoal burner, your coachman and such. And then on the back, you have the people with the infinity loop, and then the people with the laurels. So, what do you get as a bonus, for the rest of the game? And then what do you get for end game scoring? So that was really nice that they included that as well. So component-wise, I think they did a really good job. Like I said, I wish we had a little bit better money, but that's kind of the standard is you get, just normal cardboard money, and it's serviceable. The little canal tokens, they're okay. They don't need to be anything. At least they're blue, for water. But they need to be small enough so you're not taking up a lot of space on the board. But I've played this, I think, at all player counts, and I don't know that I would actually favor one over the other. Two-player game obviously is going to play a little bit faster. You're going to have less cards and less, turns that other people are going to be taking. In a 4-player game, you know, it's everybody's kind of doing their own thing. There's not really that much player interaction at all. It's you're not manipulating the dice, so it's person, you know, is going to be taking their turn. They're going to be, you know, playing things. The only player interaction really is if you have something where you're able to, you know, stick something to the other players, like make them all take a threat, you know, token or something like that. So, and maybe that's why Rado liked it so much, because there was not a lot of take that in there, and you know, he always likes games with less conflict. But no, I've really enjoyed the heck out of this. Sadly, it doesn't get to the table as much. Also, I don't have the expansion, this city on the Zwin or something like that, which I wish I had. I do know that Queen Games, in their City Collection series of Stefan Feld games, because he's the designer of this, has been re-implemented with Hamburg. I've not played it. I've not seen it, so I can't really speak to that. And with Bruges being out of print for so long, if you're not able to find a copy of that, you might want to check out Hamburg and see if it scratches that same itch. But for me, I'm very glad that I have this as part of my collection. And like I said, it's one that I really want to get to the table more. And I think it has an easy enough entry point where you can get people into this. I mean, it's not real difficult, and the fact that you have those player aid cards makes it very easy to follow along with. So that is Bruges from Z-Man Games, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, click that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media like Facebook
and Twitter at DadBeDaughter.
And if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can visit our Patreon page. So thanks for watching.
Thanks.